The seaside villa lay shrouded in darkness, the pale moonlight filtering through the delicate curtains, creating gentle, shadowy patterns on the polished hardwood floor. Olivia remained still in the kitchen, her fingers wrapped around a glass of red wine, her gaze locked onto her reflection in the expansive window. Yet her mind wandered far beyond the confines of the moment. They found themselves ensnared in a whirlwind of tumultuous memories, trapped in the delicate balance between the illusion of tranquility her family portrayed and a hidden truth she feared to disclose. The living room resonated with laughter and familiar voices, Jonathan animatedly sharing an old tale with his brother-in-law, while Natalie engaged in her own sharp yet calm banter with the guests. To Olivia, it was merely a monotonous murmur lingering in the periphery. She sensed an invisible force drawing her into another realm, where the very walls of the house seemed to constrict around her. Olivia. A rich, sonorous voice shattered the silence, deep and echoing. She pivoted, her heart racing in her chest. There stood Adrian, leaning casually against the doorframe. The soft glow illuminated his features, revealing an expression that starkly contrasted with his typical carefree demeanor, catching Olivia's attention. In his eyes, a change had taken root. Gone was the youthful brightness, replaced instead by a profound, shadowy depth. "What brings you to this place?" Olivia succeeded in maintaining a steady tone, yet even she could detect the subtle quiver in her voice. Adrian hesitated before responding. He entered the kitchen, closing the door softly behind him. The gentle click of the latch resonated in Olivia's ears, a warning bell reverberating through her thoughts. "Are you aware of something?" Adrian spoke deliberately, his eyes fixed on her features. "Some matters demand our attention, no matter how long we try to overlook them." Olivia stood still, caught in a moment of unexpected stillness. The glass in her hand was cold to the touch, a fragile thing that seemed on the verge of breaking beneath her hold. "What do you mean by that?" Adrian advanced another step, narrowing the space between them to mere feet. He inclined his head ever so slightly, his keen eyes narrowing as if he sought to penetrate the depths of her very soul. "You understand precisely what I mean. You may deceive all those around you, but you cannot deceive me." Her heart ached with a sharp twist of pain. She couldn't help but think, this simply couldn't be happening. Neither here nor now. "Adrian, stop," she commanded, her tone cutting through the air, yet the assurance she sought to project faltered beneath the weight of his stare. "I've tried to stop," he murmured, his voice gentle yet laden with a heaviness that constricted her chest. "Yet, it fails to function. Can't you perceive? This is inescapable." "What is there to escape from?" Olivia attempted to retreat, the chill of the counter pressing firmly against her back. "You're merely a child, Adrian. This is not reality." "Unreal." Adrian emitted a laugh, brief and piercing, stripped of any trace of amusement. "So, what is causing your trembling? Why is it that you cannot meet my gaze and refute my words?" The kitchen door emitted a soft creak. Olivia straightened at once, her wide eyes revealing her trepidation. A presence approached. What was she meant to do? Before she could utter a word, Adrian withdrew slightly, his eyes remaining fixed on hers with a silent intensity that seemed to dare her to respond. "Feel free to continue your charade, Olivia. Yet, there will come a day when the truth will be unveiled to all. There is no escape from the inevitable." The door creaked open, and Natalie entered, her keen gaze scanning the two figures before her. With a raised eyebrow, she allowed her lips to curl into a subtle, knowing smile. "What is this? Shall we indulge in a brief, intimate dialogue?" Olivia swiftly averted her gaze, battling to hide the warmth spreading across her cheeks and the tremor that laced her words. She spoke of a few inconsequential matters, her tone devoid of any inflection or warmth. Yet, in that ephemeral instant when Natalie's eyes darted toward Adrian, Olivia perceived it. Natalie had observed a peculiar detail, one that eluded Olivia's understanding, and she felt an unsettling conviction that this was merely the start. Olivia reclined against the expansive window in the living room, a glass of red wine cradled in her hand, her eyes drifting thoughtfully to the garden beyond, where the vibrant sounds of her family's laughter and conversation filled the air. In the soft glow, her visage bore a trace of unease. Memories she had long buried resurfaced with an unstoppable force, engulfing her in a tempest of thoughts that threatened to overwhelm her senses. Adrian. His name had always been a familiar presence in her life, yet she had never envisioned herself ensnared in this peculiar fog of emotions. He was more than merely her nephew. That was the singular truth Olivia had fervently sought to reject. Yet the recollection of that momentous day, the day when an unusual connection blossomed between them, remained vivid, imprinted in her thoughts like a scar that would not diminish. That day lingered in her memory with striking clarity. The afternoon was drenched in rain, a weighty atmosphere enveloping the scene as she and Adrian, merely an 11-year-old boy at the time, journeyed in her aging car, making their way home from school. The rain fell relentlessly, transforming the road into a slick and perilous path. In a brief lapse of attention, the vehicle veered off the slender road, gliding into the verdant ditch that lay adjacent. Fear gripped Olivia as she faced Adrian. The boy, his blue eyes brimming with astonishment, remained silent, neither crying nor screaming. Instead, he clasped her hand firmly and murmured, "Don't be afraid, Aunt Olivia. I have arrived." That moment transformed everything. It wasn't the accident that left them shaken. They both emerged with merely minor scratches. It was the haunting depth of Adrian's eyes that lingered in their minds. They bore a determination, a subtle fortitude, an instinct to safeguard her that seemed remarkably advanced for someone so young. From that moment forward, an unseen bond wove itself between them. Adrian always appeared in her life, a soothing presence she was reluctant to acknowledge she relied upon. Yet now, that illumination had changed form. Adrian had shed the innocence of the boy she once knew. Upon his return after years spent overseas, Olivia recognized that Adrian had transformed into an undeniably alluring young man. His eyes remained unchanged, yet they now possessed a profound depth, an unsettling intensity that captivated her, a subtle magnetism that could not be overlooked. Their gaze had transformed, shedding the naivety of a nephew once admiring his aunt. His eyes reflected the struggle of a man wrestling with emotions he could scarcely hold back. Olivia wished to forget, yet the memories lingered, refusing to be silenced. She recalled the way Adrian had gazed at her during the initial family gathering following his return. His gaze held for a moment longer than necessary, as though he sought to unravel the myriad thoughts swirling within her mind. His voice lingered in her memory, rich and soothing, as he drew closer and whispered, "Aunt Olivia, why do you seem so forlorn? Feel free to share whatever is on your mind." Their simplicity belied a profound impact, leaving Olivia shaken to her very core. She pondered the moment she had started to feel so adrift in his presence. He had once been the small boy she cradled in her embrace, The playful child she reprimanded for shattering her mother's cherished porcelain vase. Yet now, a palpable shift lingered in the air. Adrian's presence both terrified her and captivated her in equal measure. Yet, the most agonizing aspect was her inability to detach herself. As Olivia sank deeper into her thoughts, a familiar voice pierced the haze of her reverie, pulling her back into the realm of reality. "What occupies your thoughts, Aunt Olivia?" Adrian lingered in the doorway, his hands nestled in his pockets, a crooked smile dancing across his lips. Yet his eyes, those intense, inscrutable eyes, contained a suggestion of something much deeper. Olivia startled, her fingers clenching around the wineglass. "Nothing," she stammered, her voice wavering ever so slightly. "Simply contemplating the intricacies of my professional endeavors." She averted her eyes swiftly, evading his stare, yet she understood that Adrian would not be swayed so readily. "Aunt Olivia, your skills in deception leave much to be desired," he remarked, entering the room with a voice that resonated like distant thunder, laced with an unspoken provocation. Silence enveloped her, yet her heart surged with a frantic rhythm, a wild drumbeat resonating in her ears. In that instant, she realized that every effort to escape the burgeoning feelings within her would only pull her further into the inescapable vortex. Yet, the most chilling revelation was this. She found herself uncertain about the desire to break free. Gentle droplets descended from the heavens, while the warm radiance of the streetlights danced upon the delicate sheen of water that enveloped the pavement. Olivia perched in the car, her fingers clenched around the steering wheel with intensity. This evening's family gathering had stretched on longer than anticipated. Jonathan had made his way home sooner, citing a pressing meeting scheduled for the morning. Olivia held no resentment towards him. However, his absence had thrust her into an unforeseen predicament. "Allow me to take you home," Adrian offered, his tone steady and soothing. Initially, Olivia planned to decline, yet the gaze in Adrian's eyes, one that brooked no dissent, compelled her to acquiesce with a reluctant nod. She reassured herself that allowing her nephew to drive her home was perfectly fine. Yet the unsettling sensation in her chest lingered, stubborn and unyielding. The vehicle moved effortlessly through the darkness, the tranquility interrupted solely by the rhythmic purr of the motor. Adrian's gaze was fixed on the road stretching out before them, yet Olivia sensed his presence with an intensity that enveloped her completely. Sitting beside him, she endeavored to keep a safe distance. Yet the palpable tension in the air rendered every attempt in vain. "It seems you're feeling a bit discontent, aren't you?" Adrian's unexpected utterance broke the stillness. Olivia was left in a state of shock, her eyes widening as they flitted to his face. "Your attempts to conceal it are evident to me." "Adrian, don't speak such nonsense," she replied, striving to maintain her composure. Yet the faint quiver in her voice revealed her underlying discomfort. "Absurdity." Adrian faced her, his eyes aflame with fervor. "So, what is it that makes you continue to evade everyone? Why do you consistently seek reasons to escape the gatherings, as if you wish to remain unnoticed by anyone?" Olivia remained silent. She was unable to. Adrian spoke with a clarity that rendered her utterly vulnerable to the weight of his truth. She angled her face toward the window, seeking refuge from his stare, yet her quietude only served to validate his doubts. In an instant, the car lurched violently and came to an abrupt halt. Adrian's brow furrowed as he engaged the handbrake, stepping out to explore the situation. Olivia gazed through the window as he knelt beside one of the tires, examining something intently. As she swung the door open and emerged into the night, the chill of the breeze caressed her skin, sending a shiver coursing through her body. "What seems to be the issue?" she inquired. Gently. "A flat tire," Adrian remarked, standing tall, his expression shifting to one of subtle gloom. "We must pause here for a moment." Olivia surveyed her surroundings. The path lay barren, illuminated only by the distant, soft light of a humble inn by the roadside. A tightening sensation gripped her chest, yet she found herself with no alternative but to proceed. Adrian turned his attention to where she was looking and remarked, "Go wait inside. I will take care of this." With a moment of uncertainty, she finally made her way toward the inn. A wave of unease washed over her as the door slowly creaked open. The interior exuded a cozy warmth, a striking juxtaposition to the biting cold beyond its walls. Olivia settled into a wooden chair tucked away in the corner, seeking to quiet the tumult of her racing thoughts. Moments later, Adrian entered, shaking the dust from his garments. "I have reached out to someone to repair the tire." "It'll take a while," he said, inching closer, his gaze fixed on hers as if he were attempting to decipher the tangled thoughts swirling within her mind. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," she replied, though her voice betrayed a hint of uncertainty. Adrian settled beside her, the distance between them almost non-existent, so near that she could sense the warmth emanating from his form. Olivia made a subtle movement, attempting to carve out some space, yet Adrian was relentless in his pursuit, refusing to let her slip away. "You don't need to pretend to be strong with me," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I understand your emotions. I understand, for I share that sentiment as well." "Adrian, that's enough," she said, her voice quivering with emotion. "You're pushing this beyond reasonable limits." "No," Adrian countered, his intense gaze piercing through hers. "The truth is something we both understand deeply. It's time to face the truth." She parted her lips to voice her objections, yet her words stumbled as Adrian drew nearer, his hand lightly grazing hers. A surge of electricity coursed through her, rendering her immobile. She ought to have pushed him away, ought to have walked out, yet she stayed frozen, gazing at him. "Olivia," Adrian whispered, and in that instant, time appeared to freeze. The gentle patter of rain, the soft shimmer of distant lights, all gradually dissolved into the void. Only the two of them remained, and the space that once separated them vanished completely. As Adrian's lips met hers, Olivia was engulfed by a wave of emotion, leaving behind all reason and thought in its wake. She was acutely aware of the wrongness of it all, fully cognizant that this choice could unravel everything she held dear, yet she found herself unable to resist the pull of her desires. In that brief, tumultuous instant, they transcended the confines of reality's constraints. They found themselves ensnared in a tempest, with no way out for either of them. The golden afternoon light danced through the verdant foliage of the family garden, where the joyful sounds of relatives resonated throughout the expansive yard. While the weekend gathering buzzed with warmth and laughter, Olivia experienced an unsettling sensation, as if an unseen cord was constricting her chest, robbing her of breath. In the corner of the garden, she held a glass of juice, her gaze wandering aimlessly across the crowd. Adrian stood amidst a lively gathering of younger cousins, engaged in their banter, yet his gaze remained steadfastly fixed on her. She was acutely aware that she ought to avert her gaze from him. She ought to refrain from dwelling on the past events. Yet, despite her relentless efforts, The recollection of that night at the inn surged forth with striking clarity, as though it had unfolded mere moments prior. The intimacy, the passionate embrace, and the unyielding remorse that had lingered within her ever since. Olivia held her glass with a firm grip, striving to banish those memories from her thoughts, yet they resurfaced, an unrelenting echo of the boundary she should have never breached. Olivia. The unexpected voice jolted her, causing her heart to race momentarily. Natalie lingered in the background, a glass of red wine in hand, her piercing gaze slicing through Olivia with precision. "Are you okay? Your attention appears to be elsewhere." Olivia conjured a fleeting smile, wishing it would conceal her discomfort. "I am well. It seems I simply didn't manage to catch enough sleep last night." "Is that so?" Natalie arched an eyebrow, her lips curling into a subtle, knowing smirk. Or could it be something entirely different? Her words sliced through Olivia's calm like a sharp blade. She fought to maintain her composure, even as her heart raced with a ferocity that made her fear it could explode from her chest. "Could you clarify what you mean?" she inquired, her tone meticulously calibrated. Natalie savored her wine, her gaze fixed intently on Olivia. "Ah, it's merely that. Recently, it appears that you and Adrian have grown rather intimate. It's impossible to overlook the way his gaze lingers on you. It is quite distinctive." A surge of warmth flooded Olivia's cheeks, yet she struggled to keep her poise intact. "Adrian happens to be my nephew. Our connection is simply that of a typical family bond." "Is that truly the case?" Natalie inclined her head ever so slightly, her smirk growing more pronounced. "I hold on to that hope. For you see, such matters rarely remain concealed for long." The nuanced menace in Natalie's voice resonated with Olivia, echoing like an ominous chime. She sensed that Natalie harbored doubts. Unbeknownst to her, the depths of her cousin's observations remained a mystery, yet it was evident that Natalie was resolute in her pursuit of the truth. Olivia forced another faint smile, yet within her, a storm of panic was brewing. "You are delving too deeply into your thoughts. There is truly no matter to deliberate." Natalie shrugged, feigning disinterest, yet her piercing gaze revealed the truth beneath her facade. "I simply wish to confirm, Olivia. We are, aren't we? My unwavering desire is to safeguard the family's honor." Her last utterance carried an air of ominous foreboding, and Olivia's breath caught in her throat as the weight of impending doom pressed down upon her. Natalie turned and walked away, leaving Olivia rooted in place, her thoughts a chaotic whirlwind. She understood that Natalie would persist relentlessly. Her cousin was not one to overlook matters that stirred her curiosity. Thus, it was merely the dawn of what was to come. As the evening progressed and the gathering began to dissolve, Olivia took every measure to steer clear of Adrian. Yet, she had not anticipated that he would be the one to confront her initially. In the shadowy garden, Adrian drew near her, his gaze aflame with resolve. "It's time for a conversation." "Not now," Olivia whispered, her gaze flitting anxiously across the yard. "There is an overwhelming number of individuals present. We must ensure that no one harbors any suspicions." "I don't care," Adrian said, his voice a low rumble, steady and resolute. "Can't you perceive it? Natalie possesses a secret knowledge. Should we continue to evade this matter, the truth will inevitably come to light for her." Olivia felt a sharp constriction in her chest. She understood that Adrian was correct, yet that realization did little to ease her burden. What is it that you desire? Shall we lay bare our truths to all? Are you aware of the devastation this could bring to our family? Adrian advanced, his gaze fierce in the subdued glow. I refuse to conceal myself any longer. I can no longer maintain the facade that nothing has transpired, fully aware of our actions, my emotions, and the feelings I sense within you as well. Just as Olivia was about to reply, Natalie's voice pierced the air from behind them, causing both to startle. Ah, it seems I've chanced upon a rather intriguing dialogue. Olivia turned swiftly to find Natalie poised before her, arms folded, her keen gaze sparkling with triumph and a sly smile dancing on her lips. Would you be so kind as to elaborate? Or perhaps I should venture a guess. There's nothing to explain, Olivia said swiftly, striving to keep her voice steady, yet the quiver gave her away. Our conversation was centered around labor. Is that so? Natalie advanced, her eyes piercing into Olivia. I have my doubts about that. Rest assured, I have no intention of turning this into a grand spectacle, at least for the time being. The subtle menace in Natalie's words made Olivia feel as though the very earth beneath her was disintegrating. She realized that her secret was no longer secure. In that instant, she realized that everything would change from here on out. Natalie stood there, her piercing gaze slicing through the tension, while Olivia felt like a prey, trapped with no escape in sight. The stillness lingered among the trio beneath the shadowy embrace of the garden, interrupted solely by the soft murmur of the wind and the weighty inhalations of Adrian. Olivia yearned to utter a single word, to shatter the oppressive silence that enveloped her, yet her throat constricted, as though the very essence of her thoughts was ensnared within her, unable to escape. If I'm right, Natalie began, her voice steady yet tinged with a sharp edge. Isn't this something that everyone should be aware of? She advanced, each footfall striking Olivia's nerves with the force of a hammer. A clandestine bond woven into the fabric of family ties. What a tale it would weave if it were to circulate. Adrian swiftly positioned himself between Natalie and Olivia, his sturdy frame acting as a protective shield. You have no right to interfere in this, he said firmly, his intense gaze fixed on Natalie. This matter does not concern you. Natalie's laughter rang out, a chilling, piercing note that sent a shiver through Olivia, as if the very warmth of her blood had been replaced by frost. It's not my concern. Remember, Adrian, I am your mother. Your actions have a profound impact on me and our family. Trust me, this is undeniably my concern. Olivia found herself unable to keep her silence any longer. She advanced, her hand quivering as it settled on Adrian's arm, softly guiding him away. Adrian, don't, she whispered, her voice trembling yet firm. She glanced at Natalie, her gaze filled with desperation. Natalie, I urge you to maintain discretion regarding this matter. I am willing to fulfill any request you have. Natalie arched an eyebrow, a sly smile playing on her lips. Is there anything at all? She echoed the words, her voice laced with derision. While I appreciate your intriguing proposal, Olivia, I find that a mere promise does not suffice for me to overlook this matter. This family's reputation hangs in the balance because of your actions. Our reputation, our very essence, hangs by a thread, poised to unravel should this truth emerge into the light. What is it that you desire? Adrian asserted, his tone deep and challenging. Natalie paused, her keen gaze flickering back and forth between the two of them. At last, she let out a sigh, yet her frosty exterior remained unyielding. It is straightforward. Olivia shall keep her distance from you, Adrian. Entirely. Silence reigns, devoid of gatherings or communication. If that's the case, I will ensure that the truth comes to light, revealing the true nature of those they share their lives with. Absolutely not. Adrian cried out, his voice heavy with despair. He attempted to advance, yet Olivia grasped him firmly, restraining his movement. With tears shimmering in her eyes, she turned to Natalie and nodded. Very well. I shall undertake it. I shall keep my distance from Adrian. This cannot be done. Adrian whirled to confront her, his voice trembling with anguish. We must not allow her to dominate us in this manner. Olivia's hands caressed his face softly, her eyes filled with sorrow as they locked onto his. Adrian. I apologize. Yet, this remains the sole path forward. From the very beginning, we were mistaken. This was not meant to occur. Adrian recoiled, shaking his head as if the words had landed a tangible blow. Olivia's heart shattered at the sight of the anguish etched on his face, yet she understood that if she didn't bring it to a close now, everything would only descend deeper into chaos. Natalie wore a sly smile, her satisfaction unmistakable. Excellent. I always believed you would make the right choice, Olivia. Please don't let me down after I've offered you this opportunity. As Natalie pivoted and departed, Olivia lingered in the shadows, an overwhelming void enveloping her. Adrian remained in his place, quiet, yet she sensed the profound pain emanating from him as if it were a tangible presence. Adrian, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper as she beckoned him. Yet he merely shook his head, retreating once again. Don't you see, he said, his voice heavy with emotion. Your absence is unbearable to me. You mean the world to me. And that's precisely why we must halt, Olivia whispered, tears cascading down her cheeks. Adrian, you are worthy of so much more. A life unburdened by guilt, a love that remains light and unencumbered. I'm unable to provide that for you. Adrian turned away, his footsteps gradually fading into the enveloping darkness, leaving Olivia standing solitary, her heart weighed down by an unbearable heaviness. As his silhouette faded into the distance, Olivia felt the irrevocable loss of a piece of her soul. Yet she recognized that love could also entail the painful act of release, prioritizing another's future over her own emotions, regardless of the ache it brought her. She re-entered the party, immersing herself once more in the inviting radiance of the lights and the joyous laughter of her family. Yet she understood that from this moment forward, a fragment of her would forever linger in the shadows, a realm brimming with forbidden memories, unvoiced feelings, and the lingering specter of Adrian that she could never truly flee.